Hey, everybody, welcome to Build the Kingdom, where we talk lifestyle, real estate, and business. Real stories to help you imitate success and avoid lessons. I hope you enjoy the show. What is going on, everybody? Today we have Dylan Burnett, the Northbound Homebuyer, in the building today. Dylan, how you doing?
Oh, fantastic, man. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming, giving me a nice ride in the Lambo on the way to the office. I appreciate that today.
Absolutely.
A lot of fun. But yeah, man, I appreciate you hopping on today. Dylan's a great friend locally here in the Phoenix area, does a lot of purchasing homes in the Jersey area. We'll get into that a little bit. But Dylan, why don't you fill the people in a little bit on how you're like the rest of us, not a Phoenix local, and now you live out here, and give them a little backstory on where you're from and how you ended up out here in Phoenix.
For sure. Yeah, from southern New Jersey. Grew up there, went to school over there. And then, a couple years ago, shortened it up. We moved out here in 2021. And, just because we were coming out here every year, loved it. Weather's great. But that was a super short story, but that's the gist of it.
I love it. I love it, man. And you, in your time, I know we just had the nasty storm with your newborn baby on the day of your newborn baby's birth. Is that something you experienced at all coming out here, or was that new? You got your first one after you had moved out to Arizona.
Oh, we had them when we were here, when we were visiting here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the first one you see is definitely like end of the world type situation.
Yeah, now I've seen a wall of sand or dust, whatever you want to call it.
Kind of looks like Mission Impossible. It reminds me every time when Tom Cruise is running out the building, and I think it's Dubai, and he's just sprinting away from the storm, and I'm like, it's impossible to get away from when you're in them. But
more like the Mummy. The Mummy's the perfect example.
There you go, for sure. Well, cool, dude. So I wanted to bring you on today. I know you have a very interesting take at your alley in real estate. You've got I know you've built up a super successful 75 plus rental, 7-figure a year revenue business. And, I'm excited to get some of the nuggets shared with not only with my network, but also, be able to showcase this podcast to your people. Just kind of let them know how you got where you got to. I know a lot of people in real estate, they look at it as this big blue ocean where it's just, there's so much. Sometimes it's too much information overload, right? Where it's just, it's hard to pick one thing and stick to it. Feel like a lot of people pick, 5, 10, 20 different things, try them all out a little bit, and then never really get serious and say, hey, real estate doesn't work. So would love to have you share a little bit about your backstory on how you got into real estate, what that looks like in terms of, maybe not having a lot of capital, right? How can you get into real estate, do a bunch of calls, right? And then work your way into kind of now what you're doing, where you've been able to establish some of those partnerships, have some funding behind you, and, really start to accumulate a portfolio, accumulate some rentals, but also, the additional things you're doing. So would love to hear your story and just how you got to where you are today.
100%. So I guess it started my last year in college. I had a professor who I walked into his office. He had his retirement or something up, had $2 million in it. And I asked him how in the world did you get that? So he kind of explained to me he had all these rentals, 38 rentals he owned. And that's mainly where he got his money from, is buying them cheap, and did a whole refinance method where he would pull out a bunch of money.
Kind of like a Burr style?
Sort of, a little bit different. He never made any money on the rentals. He just made money on the refinances.
Okay.
Only guy I've ever met to do that strategy. So, it was a good introduction, but he introduced me to some whole people that were at the time wholesaling before it was really a cool thing to do, before every guru came out. This was guys that were actually doing wholesaling as a full-time thing. So it was cool to meet with them. I worked with them 2014, 2015, just walking around Philadelphia, putting notes on doors, not really learning anything. It was basically just labor.
Yeah.
But it was still a cool experience. And then after that, I realized, all right, I need some money, even for wholesaling. You got to have something to start with, because otherwise it's, a lot of what do we call it? Boots on the ground work.
Yeah.
For lack of a better term.
And for people who may be a little bit earlier, right? I know we mentioned BRRRR strategy, so that's the buy, rehab, refinance, repeat. A little bit different of a flavor, it sounded like, to where people are able to fix up a property, pull out that equity in the home, can be untaxed. You usually get 75 to 80% of it. You can then roll it into your next project. It's a very clean and smooth way to accumulate. But in regards to wholesaling, again, for the audience out there who may not be familiar with wholesaling, can you fill people in just a quick 10,000 foot view of what does a wholesaler do in real estate?
So let's say I'm buying a property off of you. Terms of the agreement have to say it's what do we call an assignable contract. All that means is I can sell the contract to somebody. So if I'm buying it off of you and I have another investor that's willing to pay $10,000 more than I am, then I could sell them the contract. And when they close, I make that spread of, in this case, $10,000.
Cool. Awesome. So you started doing that in Philly, going door to door. I'm assuming not downtown. You were probably out in the burbs.
No, it was we got there bright and early. It wasn't in the best parts of town.
Okay.
I wasn't door to door. I was just hanging notes, walking through the town.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it wasn't the best part of the city, but that's where a lot of the deals are, or the beat up rundown area of town.
Yeah. And typically, is that because somebody feels like they're stuck and maybe doesn't think that their home could sell for a specific value? What would you say, being boots on the ground, going around, obviously the goal is in any style of business, like solve problems, right? That's how you make money, by solving problems. So as a wholesaler, what did you feel like when you were starting out? You didn't have a lot of money, you wanted to get into real estate. You saw this promise of what the potential is. What did you feel like going out wholesaling you were going to be able to help solve for those people?
Just, I guess, kind of the nuts and bolts of your questions, like who was I targeting, or who were we trying to find? People that have distressed houses, and that's a very large, segment of people. So it could be a tired landlord, it could be inherited property, you could be in foreclosure, you could be in, have a tax issue, or maybe the house is just beat up and you don't have any money to fix it. So variety of situations, and that's kind of like the ideal avatar of what we're looking for.
Cool. And then taking a step further, you start out in Philly. You're from South Jersey, about what, 30, 40 minutes away from Philly?
Yeah, about there.
So you were spending hour and a half to 2 hours with traffic, probably over 2 hours in the car every day. How many hours were you spending boots on ground walking around those neighborhoods?
Yeah, usually, I had a full-time job of delivering pizza before then. So it'd be weekends, I would go over there, and that's when I would walk around the town, and she'd teach me a little bit, but really it was just sticking notes on doors.
Yeah.
Looking for people that are looking to sell their house.
So that's what I do love to hear, that you extended the ask, right? If you wouldn't have gone up and asked your professor, you would have never known, right? So you extended the question, which then resulted into somebody who was willing to give you a helping hand and give you an opportunity. Was it maybe not the most glorified work? Yes. At the same time, was it a way for you to get paid and still learn something you were interested in? I think that's what's super cool. And then, what I think is really important to hear is for people who want that future, for people who want to get into real estate, for people who think it's just this passive income style business. You were working, like you said, all week, and then you would spend your weekends out, your free time, where you could be going and enjoying, driving over, enjoying the ocean, enjoying the lake with some friends, doing those kind of things. You were out door to door, hanging things. So, that's a big piece of it that I'd love for you to share. Just kind of, was your expectation getting into real estate? Did you understand how hard of a worker you would, need to become to excel, to where now it probably just feels like the natural flow, right? You've got the habitual, set up to where every day, you know what you're doing, you time block days, you understand what needs to get done, you get it done. But it probably would have overwhelmed you as a college kid. So, how would you say your transition into realizing how much work real estate would take to accepting that? What did that look like for you?
Well, I thought I was going to get rich in like the first year.
The good old get rich quick scheme.
Oh, everyone pitched it on every podcast, and I was deep in it. But learning a lot of those things really helped me down the line, probably even further ahead. So like the next part of that is I became a realtor for a few years.
Okay.
So, someone said it at the re-event one time, recovering realtor. Um, After that, and then I got back into wholesaling and then realized, oh, all this work before actually helped me in the future. So, kind of just to touch on that a little bit, we started going to, we were trying to find distressed people. So what we were doing is going to the municipalities, the cities, the towns, and just being like, hey, who has, it's called code violations. Again, this is a free way to get potential leads, people that have some sort of distress because they have a code violation.
Right.
That's how we did our first deal.
And it's not necessarily picking on people who are in a bad spot, but it's just, hey, again, these are people who are in a situation that may not feel like they can get out of it, right? Or they may be in a situation where they can't get out of it right now. And so, yeah, no, I think that's really cool that municipalities open that up for public knowledge if you go and ask for it. They're not broadcasting it, but it's good to know that there are unique ways that you can work with cities to, again, help people in ways that if nobody comes knocking on their door, they may feel like they're just stuck.
And to kind of touch on that, the exact first deal we ever did, they had the house for 17 years. Nobody lived there, and it was just overgrown and beat up. So this wasn't taking advantage or something like that. This was like, genuinely, these people needed to sell it. They just needed that push of someone wanting to buy it in order to actually sell it. So that's how we were able to get our first deal done. I think I made like $1,600 on it. It's a huge deal at the time. Not really, just proof of concept, but
yeah.
That was
again, college age?
Yes. 2016, so it was 24 maybe.
Okay. So 24, $1,600. That feels like 16 grand.
It did.
Or it feels like 160 grand.
Yeah. Felt like a lot.
And it being the first deal, it probably felt 10 times bigger because you get over that hump, right? You're like, wow, this can work, right? The first paycheck that hits your pocket in real estate, you're like, all right, this isn't just some impossible game. So,
Yeah.
no, that's cool. And then, how did it go from there? You get that first deal in. How did things start to flow? Did that build confidence? Were you still pretty overwhelmed? At that point when you had closed your first deal, did you feel like you knew anything that was going on? Or was it just, I just followed the steps and it worked?
No, I made a mistake and had to write a $400 check. So it was supposed to be $2,000, made $1,600, but this proof of concept was great. I think after that, I became more into being a realtor for a couple of years.
Okay.
And realized I hated working with the public. I hated feeling like I have to be at everyone else's beck and call. And at the time, values were a third of where they are now. So it was like my average sale as a realtor was 110 grand. So, 3% of that paying a broker, it's like you're not really making much per deal, but making more than I would have delivering pizza. So it helped there. So like the second deal after that, I found a vacant house, knocked on the door of the owner, long story short, and got under contract and made $32,000 on that. And so that was the real like, oh my God, this actually works. It was a lot more than $1,600, but then this was like, oh, now I can actually pay for some marketing and actually, have a little bit of leverage instead of just driving around all the time looking for houses that are vacant or beat up and then hopefully reaching out. So it actually worked. I reached out to somebody that had a vacant house, knocked on their door, and she told me the whole story and sold the deal pretty quick. So it was a good second deal.
Love that.
That's really my first deal. The first deal was like, oh, it worked. I made $1,600. Yay. Next deal was like, great. It's a good deal.
So you jumped from 1,600 to 32,000 in your second deal. And you probably felt like you were going to 20x your next one too. So you're just like, I'll have $1 billion by next week.
100%. Yeah. I felt like Bill Gates or.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So, man, that's cool. And now, I mean, to look back at that and now see that you've scaled, would love to have you share a little bit about, I know you have some properties and you'll have to correct me on the number, but you have the lake up in New Jersey with, I think the funny joke one day we were sitting there talking, you're like, did you know I own a lake? and I think it's what, 30 houses?
It's 40 houses and a lake.
40 houses and a lake. And so basically Dylan owns an entire neighborhood of land with a bunch of houses, a lake on it. He said he gets to go up, walk it. Everybody kind of just a small, tight-knit community. Everybody knows who everybody is. Would love to have you share a little bit about that project. Is that a part of 40 of the 75 plus that you have?
So yeah, I think I've got somewhere between 75 and 80. I'm always selling and buying some, so I don't remember the exact number. But that was the biggest purchase we did. It was a year-long deal. Friends of mine looked at it. and they messaged me and said, "What do you think of this?" So it looks like a good deal
And that was for all 40.
for all 40. It was a guy who owned them for years and years and years. I made a ton of money off him. He was 87 years old, and yeah, my friends reached out to me about it, and then they said, "Hey, we're not buying it." I said, "Do you care if I reach out?" Because I didn't want to step on their toes.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up reaching out to them, and after a long extended negotiating period, we ended up buying it for getting under contract for 2.83 million or 2.85 million.
For 40 houses and a lake.
That's where we started at, 2.85.
Oh, okay.
So that's what we got under contract for. Half of it was seller financed. It's a complicated deal. Half of it was seller financed. And then there was a bunch of, we have septic systems there. So if you don't live in a city, you own public sewer, you have a septic system. There can be 20 or 30 grand to fix. 35 of them failed. So we ended up getting another 500 grand off the price for that. So because of that, we ended up buying it for 2.35 million. Again, half of it was financed by the seller. So, so far so good. We refinanced a bunch of them this year, and long story short, we've raised rents I think $9,000 since we bought it, $9,000 a month. So it's been a huge one of the things in real estate when you buy a old landlord property, typically their rents are super low. That was the case here. So
he's at an age where if it's working and people are renting,
just paid off.
Yeah, just leave it, let it flow.
It's paid off. He didn't care. So yeah, we were able to raise those rents. Expect another, over the next 3 or 4 years, another 8 to 10 grand more in increases per month. So should we really added a lot of value, and then hopefully we're gonna end up selling them the next couple of years.
Okay.
So,
In something like that, right? So obviously knowing it's residential real estate, when you get into the commercial game, it's a little bit more fun with your net operating income. Can you label if you're looking to sell the bundle? When you get more into creative deals, right? For people who don't really understand the non-traditional style, where you go to a lender, get your loan, you pay, 3% down, 5% down, 10, 20 if it's an investment property. If you go more creative, can you bundle something like this, like a commercial based deal, to where you can almost understand, hey, these houses are at this for a residential market value, but then they also rent for this. Can you kind of find a middle ground there where you can kind of get a piece of commercial real estate or the feel of that by selling that whole bundle as, the NOI of this is what the rents are. We feel these properties are valued higher.
So basically the way this one's set up, I think there's 26 deeds. So there's a property around the lake specifically. I think there's 10 houses on there. You can't just buy that as an FHA buyer. You actually have to sell it as a commercial property.
Okay.
Or I subdivide the whole thing, which is expensive. So I think it's actually worth more, as like you're saying, with making it a cohesive an ROI. Hey, I'm selling this as you're going to make this much money off of it. So that's why we're raising all those rents to hopefully exit based on that.
Gotcha. Awesome. That's super cool, man. And then, yeah, so I guess fill us in. So Northbound Homebuyers, you have accumulated rentals, you have accumulated what some people look at real estate and think is passive income, but I'm sure you take way more calls and have to fix way more things than you want on those properties. What would you say do you enjoy most? I know your active and daily project is with Northbound.
Mm-hmm.
Then you also have the things kind of behind the scenes with the rentals. So fill people in on kind of what your more active role is with Northbound and what you're doing there.
Yeah, my day-to-day is wholesaling and fix and flip, and we're 100% virtual when it comes to at least getting the deals. So as of right now, I think I've got like 15 projects going on, maybe 18, for like actually fixing and selling, slowly transitioning to more just wholesaling. So I've got a great team back east that, we've basically brought them all on this year, and they've done really well. So that's the day-to-days, wholesaling properties and finished up fix and flips, as they arise.
Awesome. So you've got 15 to 16 projects going. You're running that business. How many people does that take? What size team do you need? When did you realize, like, at what point were you maybe doing 5 projects all by yourself and you're like, I need help? So if you want to scale kind of that wholesale fix and flip side of the business, what would you say is the tiers of growth to where you feel like you want to get into the double digits of projects, you might need a team of 4 or 5. Obviously, I'm sure you have your contractors and you have everybody aligned over in that area that just knows that you're going to bring consistent business. But in terms of like internal team for you,
Internal team, I just have a sales rep. She's my acquisitions rep, and I have a dispo rep, and then one virtual assistant, and then I have my I guess executive assistant Kate. So that's just our core group of people there. And then as far as construction for fix and flips, I just run off of GCs only. I've tried doing like the subs, and I realized I'm 3,000 miles away or however far I'm away, and that's way harder. So I just call the GCs, I beat them up on price, and they usually get done. We have a pretty good contract to where we have it on a specific timeline. That was a change I made this year, but generally speaking, GCs make my life a lot easier.
okay. So you let them be your project manager. You let them do all the boots on ground. Somebody you can trust who feels like it's their project as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. What does that look like? How long did it take for you to find the trusted team? Because I know that's a big thing. Once people actually get into real estate, once they get into different styles of projects, if they are fix and flips, if they are, maybe prepping rentals, right? If that be short, mid, or long term, that they want to keep. So many different ways to get into it. But I feel like that is one of the biggest struggles, is finding people you can trust who are not going to overcharge and underdeliver, finding people who can show up when they're supposed to show up. So how long did that process take to where you felt like you really were comfortable with a team, right? Like your GC, how many times did you have to go through maybe something not working out right, to then having to pivot and bring somebody else in? How many years of vetting did that take?
I mean, it's consistent. Like even now, they say one thing, it doesn't get done, the quality stinks. So it's a never ending.
Mm-hmm.
They always overpromise, underdeliver. That's every single person I've hired, I think. And it's just accepting that and then making sure we've got some checks and balances when they're done to make sure things get corrected or get fixed. Or, you leave a bunch of trash after it got cleaned, and I'm like, this is some obvious thing. So I'd say it's a never ending cycle of just, putting checks and balances for anyone we hire that's going to do any work like that.
Mm-hmm.
I also forgot to mention we have property management in place for roughly half of my units, and then I have a partner I own there's 40 with and a couple others with, and he manages the other half. So property management, easy way to leverage, but it's expensive.
Property management's expensive, huh? I think we need to talk. No, but that's again, that's always good to know. Being in the property management space, that is a way, again, as shared earlier, solving people's problems is how you get paid, right? And so for people who are very active on the wholesale fix and flip, making sure you're navigating the actual project, you don't have a lot of time to take a call from, John or Jane Doe talking about our septic tank exploded, right? Yeah. So you don't want to be doing that. I tell a lot of people, of course, you can vet property management companies and, percentages of revenues or their upfront costs, or obviously look through all of that. But, it is an avenue that I know is extremely helpful for somebody who is busy, more on the active deal side, to bring a property management company in.
For sure.
Yeah, dude, with I guess, to kind of wrap things up, but then also rewind, for somebody who is interested in real estate and they stumble upon wholesaling, they stumble upon fixing and flipping, and maybe they have a connection to some funding or private money lending, or they don't. For the avenue that you took, what are maybe a few nuggets that you could recommend to some people that's just, they're early on, you want to get them over a few hurdles that they'll run into? What are some tips and tricks that you might be willing to give out?
Yeah. I think one of the things that I wish I did was just take a little bit more action when I was earlier on. A lot of the things I realized is like, yeah, I'm, talking to this many people a day. Well, at the time I'm 24 and no responsibilities other than, trying to make money. So just do 10 times as much as I was doing, because the more action you get, the more opportunities we get, more opportunities and more deals. And it's really what it comes down to.
Taking massive action.
Mm-hmm. As generic as of a statement as
no,
that
and it's not. I mean, again, success leaves clues, and you always hear people who have done very well. I would never say anybody's ever made it, right? Like we're always going to be chasing something. So, understanding that, being comfortable in where you currently are is an important piece of that. But then also, yes, that massive action. I know in real estate, I've heard a lot of terms like speed love or money love speed, right?
Hmm.
And quick action, take quick action. So yeah, dude, that's good. So what if it involves, and when you say take action, would that have required more money out of your pocket, or would that have just required more time, that time spent on, getting to where you felt you needed to get? Again, maybe for people who are in an alley of real estate where they're like, I can't move as quick because I don't quite yet have the money to move as quick as I want to move. What are maybe some ways that people could get creative there?
I guess I'll give you a good example. So I've had some people reach out to me. I know they're like, I've got one cold caller and I haven't done a deal. It's been 2 months. Meanwhile, I know people with 25 cold callers, so they're talking to that many more people, right? So you're dealing with one expecting a result that's not really, you know, kind of mixed up my words there, but like do more action. So if you have one cold call, it's all you can afford. You get on the phones and you make just as many calls as them, if not more. It's doubling the time, right? You have one
Yep.
cold caller plus you, example. So um, it can be a money thing, or it's just a you take an action thing and then reinvesting that money that you do make and trying to build some leverage as quickly as possible so that other people are doing more activities for you.
Yeah. Love that, dude. Love that. Well, I appreciate you coming on today. I know we were chatting on the way here, coming up with some ideas of things to talk about. But if people are interested in just learning a little bit more about you, I know you're not a huge social media guy, but is there any place where people can find you, if it even be a simple landing page of, this is where I send people if they want to do business?
Yeah, generally northboundhomebuyers.com is there where I would send people. I'm not really on socials anymore.
Okay.
So, I'm the black sheep there.
Awesome. And say somebody had a question for Dylan. Is on your website, do you have a chat? Do you have any spot for like a form to fill out? To where maybe, hey, I'm interested in getting into this and I want to be one of your cold callers, right? Maybe somebody that just wants to work with you. Is that a spot that they can go
Yeah,
to?
they can reach out on there for sure.
Cool. Awesome. Well, again, Dylan, I appreciate your time today. Appreciate all the nuggets and filling people in on the wholesale fix and flip side. And yeah, dude,
Appreciate having me
wish you
on.
nothing but success, especially with the sale of those 40 houses around that lake. That'll be a fun one.
Yeah, hopefully.
Awesome. Well, we'll maybe have to do another one here in the future and update people on how a deal like that goes, right?
For
Maybe
sure.
talk through the process of the deal. And if you ever get that finalized, we can share a story about that.
Definitely.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks a lot, man.
Yep.